I was not on the committee, which I know will be a sadness to all members of that committee. But for me, particular sadness because for the future for our country and for most developed countries, the way in which we nurture and promote innovation is absolutely crucial. So although this is a small bill, and it's generally one that has got wide across the House support, it is something that I think is really rather important that we get right, and so important that today we debate some of the issues that perhaps the committee weren't able to reach a full conclusion on. But innovation is crucial for our success, and I would hope the Minister and the Department would move on from the fact that we have innovation, also then to look at ways in which we can promote the implementation of innovation, particularly through the removal of barriers and the promotion of competition, so that we can see the future, the fruits of this investment in actual, tangible economic and other social success for our country. I looked through the amendments, Madam Deputy Speaker, and we grouped them really into three areas, it seems, that were not fully resolved at committee. The first is the extent of oversight. Second was the issue of purpose or mission. And the third issue was about appointments. And on the issue of oversight, I would just say that it seems to me that although each of those steps might be worthy, each of those are also an impediment. And if there's one driving value that I would hope we would have with this particular bill at this stage, is to have the courage to enable this new and additional form of innovation investing, to have the freedom to grow, to do what it wishes to do. If at some point in the future we find that it has gone off the rails somewhat beyond what we know, then perhaps it is useful for us to put more bureaucratic layers on top of it, but certainly not from the outset. Because if we do that from the outset, essentially we are killing the idea in its entirety. It's so easy for us here, Madam Deputy, to say, we really believe in this, but we'd like this, and but we would like that, and but we would like that. And it's quite natural as protectors of the taxpayers' money, which used to be a role of this House, but sadly one that's been lacking for about 40 years, that we would want to take that responsibility seriously and thoroughly. But I think in this bill we have to accept, if we're going to make that step, we have to give the trust to that group. And I'd be interested in other members, particularly the Honourable Gentleman who will be speaking after me, with his long experience, about whether this is the right step we will do. And I'll come back to that on the point of appointments later. To the issue of purpose, the opposition spokesman from the Labour Party, front spokesperson, who I know has a strong and real passion in science, and I've listened to her over a number of years speak up for science, so I know her meaning is right, has proposed an amendment that says that the core mission should be about the climate change, goals. And the Honourable Spokesman for Aberdeen South, who opened the debate, similarly said that we should focus on the environment. Now, I think it's important to say, well, what impact would this have if we made that this focus? In terms of ESG, so environmental social governance assets in the world, we currently have $30 trillion worth of assets in this area. This bill is proposing to add a flow of approximately $1 billion a year, or 1 in 30,000 of the assets that are already there. In terms of where monies are flowing in this year in ESG, so this year's flow in the private sector, it's about 130 to 140 billion dollars. So if we were to make this the core mission, we would essentially be tossing 800 million on top of an enormous pile of assets that are already there, an enormous additional inflow this year that's all been done at. And by its very nature, we're doing the thing that we're not supposed to be asking ARPA to do, which is essentially to do what everybody else is doing. The whole purpose of ARPA is to do those things that other people are not doing. And I feel that it is mistaken to try and say, this is a really important mission, aren't you terrible for not saying we should focus on it? Rather than saying there are other missions, there's a bigger mission out there, which perhaps we as politicians don't have the insight to understand, which is the whole purpose why we're setting up ARPA, because our bureaucratic fingers and our tiny political minds just aren't able to think of those things. And I think that is something that is worthwhile us considering, and the reason why I absolutely agree with my honourable friend, the member of South Basildon, to say that we shouldn't have the mission. And the opposition spokesperson, who I do count as a friend, she said at one point that the Secretary of State should said that ARIA should have a laser-like focus. but then he failed to provide it. And the honourable lady opposite thought that was a criticism. I thought it was exactly the point. Exactly the point, which is it is not for the Secretary of State to tell ARPA, this is what you shall do. We've got lots of other things that do that. We've got the UKRI, we've got the remnants of an industrial strategy, which, whether we like it or not, is still shaping a lot of what government is doing. And I think, therefore, I would say to those members opposite who are asking for us to say that ARPA should have a mission, really to say, do they really believe in ARPA that is different? Or do they really want ARPA to be something which they can continue to put the same sort of controls over as they have over other aspects of UKRI and other funding? And I look forward, Madam Deputy Speaker, to listening, particularly, say, to the Honourable Gentleman who's going to follow me, who has more experience than me on these matters. Thank you.